Have you ever wondered how to use podcast interviews as a powerful marketing tool for your business? If you're a service provider looking to grow your brand and attract clients, you do not want to miss these simple strategies for repurposing podcast content to drive results. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Jen Vasquez, and I help hyper busy female service providers use Pinterest so they can book more clients, boost their income, and make a bigger impact. And on this podcast, I have the luxury of interviewing a ton of marketing experts to be able to help you in your business. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel. Today, I am so excited to be chatting with Michelle Glogovac. Michelle is the Podcast Matcher, a podcast publicist, author, and how to get on podcasts. That's by McGraw-Hill 2024, host of the award-winning podcast, My Simple Life, founder and CEO of the MLG Collective, wife, mom of two, and stepmom of two. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Jen. I'm so happy to be here. Just down the street, too.
I know. We just found that we could literally walk to each other's houses.
It might be a little far, but
it'd be a walk, but it would be a walk.
We could meet in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. I always love to start with this question. How did you get to what you're doing today from when you started working?
It is a story. So I always thought I was going to be an attorney. I went to kindergarten with a briefcase, went to UC Santa Barbara because they had a law major and I majored in law. But during my time there, I needed a job. I had to make money to pay for school. And I was able to walk to the airport because I did not have a car. So I started in what's called an FBO, a fixed-based operation. And that's where all of the corporate jets fly into. That's where they get their fuel. They make their arrangements for catering and cars and hotels and whatnot. And I worked there. I graduated and they gave me a salary and benefits. So I stayed. And I stayed in corporate aviation for 18 years. I did not become a lawyer. I did get my BA and my MS in law, though. But I stayed the path that I knew. And I had my kids a little bit later, and they are a year and 3 weeks apart. And then I was laid off. And at that point, I said, okay, I don't feel like I'm changing the world by helping the top 1% save money on their jet fuel. So what can I do that makes me feel like I'm bettering the world that my children are growing up in? I'm still contributing financially to my household. What can I do? And I had no idea. I dabbled in some social media. I did some event planning because I did that in aviation as well. And it wasn't lighting me up at all. And a woman from my birthing class, also from San Jose, said, there's a life and business coach starting a podcast. You should listen. And so I started listening. This was 2018. I didn't even know that the purple button on my iPhone allowed me to listen. And this woman kept saying, we have a purpose and a passion. And I was like, yeah, I got to figure that out. You know, this woman's going to help me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. And I would post about that on social media. And she ended up reaching out to me and said, obviously, what I'm talking about resonates with you. Do you want to pitch me to be on podcasts? I was like, yeah, that's a thing. Yes. And I jump into everything 2 feet, go all the way. So I learned everything that there was that goes into producing a show as well. I didn't just want to pitch. I wanted to know everything about podcasts. So I ended up producing her show, producing other shows, launching my own show, but I fell in love with the pitching part. So that is what my agency does. I pitch clients to be on podcasts because it's a way to tell stories. It's a way to build empathy, and it's all relationship based. So for everyone who's going, oh, well, how does podcasts and selling jet fuel actually work together? Everything is relationship based. There's other people. It's like going to the gas station. Do you go to Chevron or do you go to Rotten Robbie or where do you go? Well, is it because you're saving a penny or do you know somebody there? Or like I love Costco, so I actually drive out your way to go to the Costco. People were buying jet fuel from me because of our relationship. And that's exactly what I do with the pitches I send out. I'm doing a relationship with the host. I have a relationship with my clients and I bring them together. So that's how the two careers actually tie together.
That's wild. That's wild. So you're known as the podcast matchmaker, trademarked people.
Copyrighted now. That came through. That is a registered trademark. It's registered. Yes. That was approved last month.
That is so cool. Can you explain how podcast interviews can actually become a game changer for service-based female entrepreneurs, which are our listeners, looking to expand their reach and grow their business? Because a lot of people think, okay, I have to be like an influencer, or I have to be like an author, or I have to be like a something to be able to go on a podcast.
You need to have a story. You need to have knowledge you're willing to share, and that's really it. I whether you come in, I share different ways of creating and defining your speaking topics, and one of them is simply your journey. How exactly what you just asked me, how did you get to where you are today? Because people want to hear this. Somebody needs to hear how you took certain steps. You went on this journey. You chose that fork in the road to get to where you are today. And it's going to resonate because there is a listener out there who is going through exactly what you did. And they want that hope. They want those steps. So sharing your story is certainly one way. And then, what knowledge do you have? How is it that you do whatever it is you do in your business? And what can you share with somebody so that they can do it for themselves? And just those things alone are what people want to hear. So that's what hosts want to interview people on because they need that quality to bring to their listeners. They want things that they don't already talk about to have an expert on, to have a story to share and to tell. And then it allows people to get to know you as the guest. You're in their ear. There's an intimate conversation that's going on between two people that we're letting other people eavesdrop on. You get to hear, the way they speak, the way they share their story. If you're watching, on YouTube, then you get to see how they interact and their mannerisms that you wouldn't normally see behind an Instagram post. And so you get to actually connect in a deeper level and hear that person talk to you in your ear. It really sets people apart versus, seeing something written on a Substack or something like that. You don't get the same feeling that you do when you're listening to how someone's having a conversation with another human being. And then that allows people to fall in love with you. And they're like, oh, I really like listening to Michelle. I'm going to go check out her website and maybe I want to work with her too, because I've heard her over and over again doing interviews and I see who she is. Because if you're going to fake it, you can't fake it over and over on an interview. You have to show up as
Yeah.
yourself.
And also, too, I feel like there's something about a voice that has a sort of implied trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone is actually speaking to my ear, like you were saying, right? There is a little bit more of implied trust. And then when they back that up with good, actionable content or information, it's really effective.
Well, that's why Spotify calls us podfluencers. And I love that word. Podcasts are influencing people because they are a trusted source. We have listeners, both of us, who tune in every week to hear what we have to say. If I promote a book that I loved reading, people will say, oh, I just bought it. They trust us. And when they have a guest on, then that trust is extended to the guest.
Yes.
So then you automatically have something that a cold call is not going to give you. You are steps ahead by simply being a trusted expert source on a podcast.
And it's to the masses and it's on there for a long time. Like once
Forever.
someone starts binging and binging and binging, like it's really, that part is really incredible. So let's switch things up. I am a big proponent in all of my marketing education and working with clients on repurposing content. There's no need to constantly reinvent the wheel. You just want to say it 18,000 different ways. So repurposing podcast interviews, I know, is a really big part of your strategy. How can our listeners use their podcast appearances to create that consistent and effective marketing strategy without feeling overwhelmed?
I love a good process. So once you figure out what you want to do, write it down. Take a day where step by step you are writing down when interview goes live, you're going to do this and then link things. Are you going to create different Instagram posts for it? Link it to your Canva template that you're using all the time. So that way it actually makes it easy to offload if you want to do that too, that this is all a written down process. So my goal is that, this is a way to thank the host first and foremost. You've just gone to a dinner party at their house and that's what the podcast interview was. And now you have to send that thank you note, that thank you text the next day or the next week. to thank them for inviting you on. And then ultimately, you're marketing your own business while you're doing it. So to create social media graphics out of your headshot, the title of the episode, what the cover art is of the podcast, all of this is readily available. And then we pull transcripts for every interview that a client does, and we identify quotes that they said that are inspirational, they're thought leadership ones, they tell something, and we tell them, go make another graphic for this, and then plug the host that, oh, I said this on this podcast, tag them because they're going to tag you too. Oftentimes you're getting reels, you're getting videos and clips from
Yes.
the host. Use them, post them on TikTok,
Use
post them.
them.
Yes.
That's a big, huge point. Use them.
Yes, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Oftentimes you get all of this given to you by a host. You should use it. I have heard of, oh, it doesn't match my brand aesthetic. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's when you should have templates then. If you don't like how it looks, then make sure you have a way to reuse it in your brand so that you do use it. There's no
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah. And I share the Canva template so people can go in and change their coloring if they want as well.
That's
I think
nice of
that's
you.
real helpful. And it's anything to entice my guests to share. And I will tell you, I've had guests back multiple times. It's the guests that share that have the biggest episodes that I'm inviting back. So
Yes.
keep in mind, you want to be a good guest as well by not just sending an email, like you said afterwards, which is totally thoughtful and has only happened maybe 5 times since 2018 of my podcast. And so I think that's really impressive.
Create a Spotify playlist for yourself.
I do. I
I
love that.
love it.
And I have it on my website. I love that.
And then every time an episode goes live, you add it to the one Spotify playlist and it updates everywhere. So you're not going into multiple places, and it's less cumbersome if you do this one and done type of thing. And that link can go everywhere on your LinkedIn. It can go in your bio on Instagram. It can go everywhere on your media page. They even have an embed player so you can embed it so it looks pretty. It's not just a link. I know that we're going to talk about Pinterest because you should be doing it on Pinterest too. And if you're really getting ahead, you're creating a blog post just as the host is doing with their
Yes.
show notes. Create a blog post, and then that's where you put your Pinterest sized pin so you can then pin it onto a board where it is your podcast guest appearances.
Yeah, let's dive in there. I was so excited when I got this information and found out that Pinterest is one of your favorite tools for repurposing podcast content. So what are some easy sort of actionable tips to use Pinterest to amplify the guest appearances that you've booked?
So, like I said, create a blog post. And so, with your blog post, it is just like show notes. You have a summary of what the interview was about, have some bullet points. So, you don't have to get too, make it SEO friendly, but you don't have to get too cumbersome. Oftentimes, this is already provided to you by the host as well. Throw in your graphics. I always take the embed player from Spotify for that episode and put that also above the blog post. So you can, visitors listen while they're looking at your blog post. They don't have to leave your website, and the host is still getting the download. So it's a win-win for everybody. And then you just pin that to your Pinterest page. I think that Pinterest is oftentimes a forgotten search engine for many. And it's really funny because I did just see something today where I think it was someone in the publishing industry mentioned Pinterest as the forgotten place for book promotion. These are just simple things. And your graphic, as you know, and you share on the show, make it this. I do this same graphic that's going to be in my stories, that's going to be in the reel, the cover of the reel for any clips that I use. And it's going to be the one that I put in my blog post that I then pin. So it truly is a one and done.
Yeah, and you can use the video shorts that you would put on Instagram. You can now hook up Instagram with Pinterest, so anything you post on Instagram will also get posted automatically onto Pinterest. So
Oh,
you
I
want to
didn't
do
know that
that.
one. Oh,
Yes.
that's
And
a
then I
game
will
changer.
add that because the video content will link back to Instagram, which is totally fine. It's getting you more pins on there. But also I add the video that it is on Instagram also to another board linked back to my blog about the podcast guest appearance. So
Smart.
really good, really, really good.
Yes. And then you can do all of that, on Spotify too, on the host side, not
Yes.
necessarily
Yes.
on the other side, but all of these things, it's one and done. It
And
really is so easy.
And add the video. If there
Yes.
was a YouTube video of it, add that, because videos are proven to get seen more on blogs than no videos on blogs. So add that video as well as the one episode play or the playlist on the blog. Either way, that's going to be really helpful content.
And I think that people forget too that Spotify gives you all of this. They literally, the 3 little dots, right click, and it's all right there. So don't think that you have to go find it or ask for it.
Everyone gets confused by embedding things. It's just a code. You grab the code, you go to your website, you pick a code box or embed box, whatever they call it, and put that code in, and it's done. So it is much easier. It seems scary tech-wise, but it is super, super simple.
Yes.
Podcast interviews offer amazing marketing opportunities, but pitching yourself can be very intimidating. So if someone was not yet ready to hire your agency or someone else's agency, can you give a couple tips on how to pitch, for our listeners, on how to pitch themselves as guests on a podcast? Maybe a couple, like, don't do this, do this instead.
I have so many don'ts.
That would be, let's do the don'ts, because that's the thing. I see a lot of bad pitching. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
And I love when in my inbox, another publicist sends me a pitch she got, and I go, I got the same one yesterday. That actually happened this week. And we compared how it's literally copy and paste. So don't copy and paste.
Yeah. And my podcast is in the description, in everywhere. It's basically for women by women, right? I get pitched twice as much for men than I do for women. And I have to constantly reply, here's this great pitch that sounds awesome, but it's a man, it's a male guest, and I only have female guests. So it always kind of shocks me of the lack of research. Let's just put it that way.
That's nice of you to respond, because I've just stopped responding. I put something on my website that says,
I want to teach and educate those. I want to educate those agencies. They're almost always agencies.
Yes.
FYI.
Yes. I'm like, vet them, have me vet them for you, and go buy my book. Okay. If you're going to pitch yourself to me, buy the book first and read it. Otherwise, just don't. Yeah. So first and foremost, before we go into the don'ts, do prepare your speaking topics, get specific. Do not just say, I talk about marketing. What is it? What's your secret sauce? Define all of these things that you can speak on. Create a media kit that has everything. Make sure that you have one spot for the host to look at where they can click. They don't have to Google you unless they want to. You want to make it as easy as possible. So have that all in one spot. And then your pitch, start off with their name. You would be so surprised how many people I'll get, hello, my simplified life, or just, hi there. You don't know my name. A host's name is everywhere.
It's legit everywhere.
Yeah. Even if you listen to the episode, which you should do, they usually say, I'm the host. And then their name comes. So start off with the name and be personal. I always say there's no copy and paste in PR, and there truly should not be. There is the 2 sentences that are like the person's bio, your bio. That's not going to change, because you're not going to change who you are, where you've been, what you do. But the rest of it should be personalized to the host. Did you listen to their show? Which episode did you listen to? What did you get out of it? And do not make it the most recent episode. That is lazy. Scroll, see that there is actually an episode that you want to listen to, and listen to it. And you don't have to listen on 1-time speed. I'm a 2-time speeder person. It's so I saw somebody post, an actual agency, say, nobody has time to listen to a 27-minute episode. So don't do that. And don't say you're a fan. And I went, no, say you're a fan, that you appreciate. Yeah. I was like, this is why we are 2 different people. Listen to an episode, tell them that you listened to it. You appreciate it, that you did spend the time listening, and what you got out of it. Yes, we are an agency. There's 2 of us, and we relate to it, whether it's on behalf of the client of this episode resonated with me listening because the client does
Yeah.
this, or it's actually us. I will say in my pitch, I got out of your episode this because I went through this as well, or I was wondering about these things and I learned this. We get personal and then we introduce the client. And why is it that this is the expert that should be on the show versus someone else who can say the exact same thing? What makes you unique and stand out? And hyperlink to your website, hyperlink to where you've been, hyperlink to your business. If there's no hyperlink in a pitch, I already trash it. That's just what I do. Because nobody had time to Google. Most podcast hosts, we have full-time jobs. These are a hobby. This is another part-time job on top of parenting, on top of everything else. We don't have time to Google you unless we want to.
Exactly. If my name's not in there, if they don't have like a place I can go to look more, I find the pitches that say, I listened to this episode and I loved this actionable takeaway or whatever. Or if someone gives, because I always pitch with 2 episode examples, that gets a booking pretty quickly.
Yes. You've
If
done
they're
your
the
homework.
right target, right?
Right. Because it shows that you care and you're not copying and pasting. And I cringe every time, especially and it is agencies that, pitch garbage. It's copy and paste and you're like, no, thank you. And somebody paid for that. Somebody's paying that person.
I know. It's real bad. It's real bad. All right. You've written a book called How to Get on Podcasts, which we're going to link below so you can go get that book. But for women who want to start leveraging podcasts as part of their marketing, what are a couple first steps?
The first step would be to figure out what is your goal? Who is it you want to talk to? That is extremely important. How does that align with the audience, the people that you want to work with? Where are they listening to shows? So you should have already gotten your speaking topics that we talked about, your media kit. Now you have to look for shows and find shows that are talking to the people that you want to talk to. So researching those podcasts, read the show description because that will tell you who they're
Hello,
trying to
please read it.
attract. They're
Please
there for
read
a
it.
reason. You can listen to an episode, you should be, but listen to one if you're not sure who is it that the host is trying to talk to. It's amazing how often I get random pitches that don't align at all, or they pitch their book to me. We're not interviewing books, everybody. Yes, I have a book, but my book is not what is being pitched. I'm being pitched. So make sure you don't pitch your business. You're not pitching your product, your service, or your book. Pitch yourself. Pitch the person because that's who the host is going to interview. So look at it that way. Start researching those podcasts. You can find information on, Apple. You can Google podcasts. Go on Instagram. That's where we're all posting. That's where our social media is. Go search tags, podcasts for women or female podcast hosts. Start there. And then also, if you're looking for their contact information, go to their bio on Instagram. If they have the contact or message button or email, they put it there so you can contact them. It's not off limits. I've been asked many times, but can I email them? Yeah, they put their email address there.
It's publicly
Use it.
available.
Check out their website. Go to the website. And oftentimes, this is another way to personalize your pitch too, is to read their bio on their website. Relate to them. Show them that you know who they are, that, you live in San Jose. I live in San Jose. So I went ahead and I Googled you and I know that you're down the street and, you can do this. And yes, it's a little stalkerish, but that's my personality.
It actually shows your interest.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes. And any good stalker knows that if you show your interest, this is how you do it. There was a pitch that one stands out that I was pitching a client, but I said, I went to your bio and you have Irish twins and my kids are a year and 3 weeks apart. And I see that you love wine. Your husband loves whiskey. And oh my gosh, I feel like I'm pitching myself. She's like, well, why don't you come on the show too then? So it actually worked double because I put that out there and I did my homework, but I shared myself with her too. So, get personal. And I think it's something we miss these days, especially since everybody's virtual. Share of yourself from the pitch, because then they know that you're also going to share of yourself freely when it comes to the interview.
And I will also say too, that I have booked many clients by being a guest on a podcast by booking that podcast person,
Right.
right? Like it's because they know what I'm doing because they're doing the research on this show and everything. And we have a full conversation. After the conversation, they're like, let's set up a consultation. Like, we want to talk. It happens.
Yes.
So it's effective. Okay. So let's say we've decided I'm going to go ahead and try to pitch myself as a podcast guest. There's hundreds of thousands, maybe even a million now podcasts,
over
right?
a million active. Yeah. There's
That's what I'm
over
thinking.
4 million listed, but about a million plus
That is
are active.
Insane. But what I want to know is, what are you doing when you look at the podcasts to like really choose which podcast, right? Because some maybe are, a very well-known person who they're already getting their own guests. You can pitch to them, but it might feel like failure because you're aiming so high. Like, how would you decide which podcasts to reach out to?
I always say first look at who the audience is that they want to talk to, that they are talking to, because size does not matter in this case. You are better off talking to a host who has 5 reviews, who gets 250 downloads a month, and every one of those 250 want to hear from you because they're interested, versus going on something that, like, let's say you go on Joe Rogan and yeah, there's a million listeners, but do they really want or need to hear from you on your topic? Probably not. They wouldn't want to hear from me. I'll tell you that right now.
They wouldn't be my ideal audience.
No.
That's something I will say.
Yes. So look at that. Look at, don't always look at the number. And when we talk about numbers, we look at the number of Apple reviews, we look at the number of downloads, but we also look at their social media following. Because nowadays everything can be bought. You can buy Apple reviews, you can buy Instagram followers. So I like to look at all of it. And if there's an inflation on the Instagram following, then we also start to look at how many likes are they getting? What's their engagement? Because if you have 200,000 followers and you only get 20 likes, something's off.
Something's fishy. Yeah.
Yes. And the same goes for, do you have 7 reviews, but you have 200,000 followers? What's going on? Are you not promoting the show to your Instagram following? I've seen a lot of different things. So we look at all of those to try to get an overall view of, does this make sense? Is the podcast legit? But, just listen to it, read the description, listen to it, and figure out, is this who you want to talk to? Does the host align with you too? Because it's not just their audience, but do you guys connect, or are you doing the exact same thing too? There's so many different layers to look at of, is it a competitor? Because you're probably not going to want to pitch yourself to a competitor either.
Correct.
So listen to the show, that first and foremost.
Yeah. And what I would also say too, that when you're first starting out, it feels so big and it feels like so much work. So when in doubt, pitch, because it is, I find, a little bit about the numbers, right? The more you pitch, the more podcast guesting you're going to get too.
Yes.
And if you don't have time to do that, that's when you can turn to somebody like you.
Yes. And don't be afraid of rejection. I think that my career in sales helped me with that. That, rejection that's fine. And I'd rather get a no than a no answer. So
hello. Yes. Okay. As we start rounding things up, I always love to ask my guests, what 3 things have helped you grow your business? Now, they could be tools, it could be advice, really anything. What 3 things would you?
Obviously, podcasts.
I mean, so many times that's not the answer. So I'm like, yay.
Podcasts for sure. I think having processes in place, like I described earlier, writing everything down that I do within my business has helped from the get-go, to have a process, to put it in a Google Doc, to be able to share it as I've brought people on, and to know that there's not much training I need to do, but we're going to grow as a team and as a business, because here's how I do it and here's how I want it done. And I wrote it. Knowing everything and how it works in my business, from accounting to marketing to everything, the legal aspect, the tax aspect. I think that's so important to know from the get-go to help grow down the road. Then there's nothing sneaky can go on if you know how everything works.
Yes.
And then tools, I love Trello. Trello is like my best friend. There's a Trello board for every client. There's a Trello board for the podcast. There's a Trello board for the book. Trello.
I love it. I love it. Okay, before we get to the gift that you are sharing with our audience, tell everyone about the services that you provide so that in case, someone's listening right now and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need Michelle's help."
Thank you. So, yeah, the MLG Collective, it's a podcast booking agency, and we only do podcasts, no traditional PR, where I sit down with you and I create your speaking topics, I create your branded media kit, and then we pitch you to podcasts that align with your goals and where you want to be. And then we chase them down for after you've recorded to make sure that when they go live, you know that they go live. We
Yeah.
provide you with the transcript and the quotes identified. We add your Spotify playlist. We do all of those things so that you really just have to show up, do the recording, but then you do have to repurpose it. We just give you all the tools to do that. So I do that. We do retainer fees, monthly retainers, or I have a podcast book tour that's for authors who have a book to help them launch it. I also have one-offs where if you want me to do your speaking topics and create your media kit, then we can do that. And then you do the heavy lifting of the pitching part. So those are the main services. And then there's the book that tells you how to do all of it too, where if you like my voice, then I narrated as well. So buy the
Oh,
audiobook.
very cool. I love me some audiobooks. So I could be making dinner and listening, or I
Yes.
could be taking my dog for a walk and listening, etc. That is awesome. Okay, tell everybody what your freebie is and how it's going to help our audience.
So the freebie I have is how to be a great guest, and it is going to walk you through all of the tips on how to show up to record. You need to show up camera ready because most times these days the video is released, and even
Yes.
if it isn't, we're releasing clips of it. So that's going to help you in your reels and whatnot. What type of equipment you should have from, the not cheaper end, but the less expensive
Yeah.
end to whether you want to have the Yeti $100 mic. So it's got all of the tips in there. And then if you go to my website too, there's even more freebies and whatnot. So you can just go happy on how to be a guest, how to
Yes.
pitch yourself, all of those things.
And we'll have all of those links, including her book and website and all the 9 yards in our show notes. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your
Thank
valuable
you.
advice and your time today. And if our listeners or watchers on YouTube found some ideas and tips that you can really implement in your business, we would love for you to leave a review. We just talked about how important reviews are. So that would be awesome. Now go out there and do something for good for your business, like snagging Michelle's gift and then putting it on your calendar each week to spend a little bit of time pitching each week so it doesn't feel like such a big chore, or go work with Michelle.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it.